On this week's show, we're discussing the Xbox Developer Direct 2025 breakdown, PlayStation potentially cancelling another exclusive, and Assassin's Creed Infinity, or Animus Hub, has finally revealed itself to the world, and we're going to break all that down and talk about it on this week's GamerGuild Podcast. Good game, everyone, and welcome back to the GamerGuild Podcast, your weekly show where we get together and round up all the video game news for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on youtube.com/GamerGuildTV and available up there in the digital clouds on your podcast platform of choice. Just search for the GamerGuild Podcast or GamerGuild TV and you'll find us up there every Monday, 8 a.m. every single week. Your podcast players for this week are myself, Chris, at Arcane Roke on social media, and the ever-returning Rob. Welcome back.
Thank you. I've missed you. I've missed you very
too.
much.
Filling in for Richie this week. He's away, hopefully finally selling his house. If you didn't know, folks, Richie's been selling his house for quite some time. He may have mentioned it once or twice.
It feels like he's been doing it for longer.
It does. I'm pretty sure Stadia was still a thing when he started and was somehow still here. But yes, Richie's away doing some adulting over the weekend. So we've given him a little bit of time off where we're going to get together, and we've pulled Rob back in, of course. We had a great weekend last week, myself, Rob, Richie and Tom. We were all out having drinks for birthdays and such with friends and loved ones, and we had a great time. But it's been a while. This is the first show of the year we've had Rob on, so we'll get into, of course, all the juicy gaming news, because we do have a great show lined up for you all. But before we get into all that, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell so you're kept in the loop with all of the great content we do here at GamerGuild TV, because we do a lot. We've got our weekly live streams. This past week, myself and Richie dove back into The Last of Us Part 2 remastered ahead of course, the Clickercast returning in Season 2 of HBO's The Last of Us coming this April. Looking forward to that one, Rob?
Absolutely. It seemed like so long ago now, right?
It's nearly 2 years. It's the show ended just as my daughter was born, so that's like my timestamp is like,
yeah,
that final episode, my life changed, and then not because of the show, because of my daughter. But
I mean, it was pretty good, but not
that good. But so it's been just coming up 2 years. So it's you kind of don't forget sometimes with television, don't you? It's like Game of Thrones had it as well, where sometimes the gap felt forever, and then other times it was like, oh, new season's coming, just like a couple of months away.
Yeah, it's like I think a lot of it's down to like most shows like kind of split the season now, so it never feels like you're that far away from it. So when there is like a big gap, it's like, holy crap, like I've been waiting like most of my 30s for this show to come back.
Absolutely. And to be fair, Naughty Dog, to their credit/discredit, whichever way you want to look at it, they've put a shit ton of remasters out in the last 2 years. It feels like we've got part two remasters, part one remasters, the PC release, leading up to the show, of course. But yeah, so we'll get into all that. There was another live stream that went up this week. The guys in our Discord, the wonderful guild heroes out there, demanded that I went back and played, I don't know if you saw, but last week PlayStation announced that Indiana Jones was coming to PlayStation, which we knew about. We thought it was the Great Circle, but they snuck in there just a couple of weeks prior with the crappy PlayStation 2 Staff of Kings, if you recall. I think last time you were on, I was telling you how bad this game was.
Oh, yeah.
It's that one. Fury. It's reared its head again, but this time, Rob, with a Platinum Trophy that seems really easy to get. So actually, I've gone back to it.
I was going to say, obviously, it sucked you back in for
Platinum. It's been up-resed a little bit. It does obviously work with the PlayStation controls. The one saving grace of it is because it's one of those PS2 remaster port things, is it has the rewind feature. So when I'm playing through it, if you die too many times or the clunky-ass controls get in the way, I can just zip back 5-10 seconds and not have to restart the whole chapter. So it's quite... It's basically, when I've looked on YouTube, you can finish the whole game in like 2.5 hours. So I'm not that worried about it, and I do like Indiana Jones. So I've gone back to that in between playing Sly Cooper 2. Did you ever play the Sly Cooper games back in the day?
No Sly Cooper for me.
Yeah, it totally avoided me as well. I was talking to some of our other friends over the last week, and they all like absolutely adored it. And for some reason, I must have leaned like Crash Bandicoot and just not opted to play Sly at all when we were younger.
I think sometimes you just like. I think as kids you're like really, really tribal, where you know, and it's like, oh, like I'm a Crash guy, and like, you know, screw all these other characters who don't get a look in because I'm a Crash guy.
Yeah, you play what your friends play as well.
Yeah,
like how many times did we probably just go to each other's house, see
swap.
you'd got a game I didn't have, and vice versa. And then we went home, and went, right, birthday's coming up, I want that. And then you just kind of like repeated it off the back of each other as purchases and birthday presents and such.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a while, Rob. It's the first one, of course, of the year that we've got you on. So what have you been playing over the Christmas season? It's been a couple of weeks. Obviously, you've had some time off as well, which usually allows you to double down and actually relax for a change. What were you digging into over Christmas?
So this is the thing. So like, I had like a solid 2 weeks off, and obviously I take away like all the Christmas meandering, which you kind of have to do. But I got some like really, really quality time in gaming wise. So let's start off like where my heart is the most. I played all the way through the good campaign of Battle for Middle Earth.
Wow, the original Battle for Middle Earth.
Yeah, like number one. So I played through that. Helm's Deep is still as stressful as it ever was. I thought, I must have been terrible at games when I was younger.
Yeah.
No, I was arguably better. Like that level's just super stressful. So yeah, played through that. I put some more hours into Total War, like Warhammer. It's kind of a theme with like the fantasy things on PC.
Yeah.
Because that dropped a new DLC which I want to check out, so that was cool. I finished the Final Fantasy remake, which I really, really liked. No kind of negative comments about that at all, to be honest. Put some time into Space Marine 2 multiplayer, which I really like the campaign. I'm just like, I'm okay with leaving that game behind now. Like, I feel like I got the value out of it, and that's great.
Yeah, I never really dabbled in the multiplayer. I know it was there, and I know it would be fun, but I felt I was similar to what you were saying there. I was quite satisfied with the campaign. It was like, just the linear nature of it. When I reached the end, I felt like I'd reached the end, and it was like that was the end of a great story. I had fun. I killed a ton of enemies. I felt like a badass the whole time, and I'll be hyped and we'll be ready for Space Marine 3 when that inevitably comes out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, can't wait for it.
Finished that off, and then I'm still playing through Indiana Jones. As soon as I went back to work, like my gaming time just kind of like got savaged. And I'm still working my way through it's Geezer, isn't it? But it's pronounced.
Oh, yeah.
I'm still working my way through that section at the moment. But like, because you've like played all the way through.
Yeah, I've finished the story. I've left the full like in the open map world when you can go and kind of speak and explore a bit more. I've put a pin in that because I'll definitely be playing it on PlayStation 5. So I'll probably go for the platinum then. So I thought I did a lot of it, but then there was times when it felt like I could have pushed on, and I kind of just moved the story on in a timely fashion, knowing fine well that like collecting all the cat photos and stuff. I was like, I don't need to do that now if I'm going to do it in a few months' time. But I enjoyed it fully.
But I got like such a rude awakening when like you go to like one day Egypt, I guess, and like all the Nazis just suddenly have guns.
Yeah,
and it's like they didn't have guns before, and then like you kind of like do something a bit naughty or whatever, and they all just start shooting you, and you last seconds. Yeah. So I swiftly put my gun away again.
I was surprised that they don't really introduce the gun as a mechanic. Really, I think I played like well through the Vatican area before I even realized I already had a gun in my holster. Yeah, it was just like, oh crap! I thought I was waiting for that moment. The game like gave me one and said like, oh, here's a gun. This is how we use it. I didn't think I just have one from the beginning, so I was like just stealth and quite content using the whip.
But I think that's one of the best things that they've managed to like balance, because obviously like when you watch Indiana Jones, like like guns are involved, but it's very much secondary to like Harrison Ford one punching people, and like. I think a lesser developer would have made the mistake of having more like shooting combat, and that would have like just ruined the feel of it for me. Yeah. I give them lots of credit for balancing that correctly.
Especially with it being Machine Games, who are known for Wolfenstein, which is so heavy on the action, like non-stop killing and just murdering.
Like it would be so easy just to like, give him like one of those like weird sideways machine guns. And then just have you go ham,
where they feed into it, I was actually very surprised by it, and I actually found myself playing the majority of the game stealthy. Like that was pretty much it. I'd always try and take one or two out. There was a few of the areas where I think it kind of forces your hand a little bit, where it's like you're either overwhelmed or to get through it you really do need to whip out the old revolver and take some pot shots. But yeah, you've still got quite a little bit to go, mind. If you're in Giza, there's a good, probably I'd say 3 open world areas still that you get into off the back of that. So interesting stuff. And what your thoughts on Troy Baker's performance as Harrison Ford?
Honestly, I completely forget that it's like, if someone told me, oh, like they've kind of sampled his voice and, like, I don't know,
AI the shit
like,
out of it.
Yeah, it's like done some AI buffering to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would believe it. Yeah. The only like kind of thing that draws me away from it is, like, he has like relatively few like kind of voice lines. You know, kind of general play through, like the kind of repeat a lot.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that pulls me out of the voice acting, and it's nothing at all to do with his performance. It's even like his obviously his mannerisms are really good when you go third person, and they've also made a very good judgment not to have him kind of leaping around like Nathan Drake.
Yeah, they did.
He's very much like laboured, getting up certain areas on the whip and stuff.
Yeah, the whole back on the superhero a little bit, because it's very easy to go like, oh, he's practically a superhero. I really enjoyed it. Again, comparing it to like Staff of Kings, which is just so bad. So bad. The voice acting's terrible. The animations are terrible, and yeah, it's good that it's got a new decent game to kind of take that mantle, and it won a lot of places Game of the Year awards. So it's and it wasn't in the conversation because of when it came out. So it will be interesting with the PS5 release to see how it's garnered, because I think it's one of those, the way Xbox are. We'll get into it when we talk about the news of just them releasing games on other platforms. I wouldn't be surprised if every Xbox title sells more units, like per unit, like boxed unit, on PlayStation than it will Xbox at the moment. I believe there was something in the news this week saying it's the Series X and S still underperforming when compared to the Xbox One currently.
Yeah.
So not even PS5, it's not even conversation with that, it's in conversation with its predecessor, which did terribly, and it can't even keep pace with that. So it's definitely showing that hardware sales are down constantly for Microsoft. Yeah, but seemingly they're doing the right thing with the games. They're just doing better in other places. So
yeah, I mean, when you think like if they didn't have to start doing that with their kind of studio games, they wouldn't, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. It is a business after all, and if you can make more money on your competition, then I can see the higher ups of Microsoft who aren't really into gaming. They just crunch the numbers, going, let's do it. And the developer direct, which we're going to talk about, I'm pretty sure 4 out of 5 of the things announced are set to come to PlayStation as well. So yeah, it's the days may be quite numbered in terms of being purely a platform, but if they go publisher, I feel like they've at that tipping point now where the 90% of their content is coming to everything else. Then they are just multifaceted. They'll still do the hardware, no doubt, but it's not their main source of income. And I guess in today's world, businesses need to be very, very fluid with that. And as someone who's not an Xbox diehard fan, I don't mind it. But I can totally see if you were like grew up and you were passionate, you had your collection, you'd had every console, this would sting. Like
I guess it goes back to like a tribe thing, isn't it? Where it's like, oh, I was an Xbox guy, therefore, like I've always been an Xbox guy, despite the fact that things have moved on, right?
Yeah, PC and everything, it's changed it all. So, but we'll get into that, Rob. But we can't do that until you introduce us to the. So apparently we're a big enough show for sponsorship now, guys, so check out this ad.
I'm Connor.
And I'm Jeremy.
We're comedians. And what's worse, we're comedians who love to talk about video games. Yikes! We host a podcast called Super NPC Games Club.
On this book club style series, we discuss games like Super Mario 64, Mass Effect, and Pokemon Yellow, covering them chapter by chapter to ensure that no line of goofy dialogue or moment of developer perversion gets missed. I'm looking at you, Sonic Adventure.
If you've been dying to hear piping hot takes about the little hat Mr. X wears in Resident Evil 2, then this is the podcast for you.
So check out the Super NPC Games Club anywhere podcasts can be found, and empty your belly because it's about to be full of laughs.
The graciously gathered GamerGuild Gazette, aka the news.
news. And of course, as always, every week the news is brought to you by our wonderful guild heroes, the fantastic folks who support the channel that extra little bit more. From as little as 99p, you get early access to this very show, stickers and badges next to your name in the live chat, and early access to some of our shows. Currently, the entire season 1 of the Clickercast, we've remastered it, we've put the new intro on, we've tweaked the audio and made it better. That's available now leading into season 2, in and amongst all the other videos we put up throughout the course of the year. So 99p is little as you can support us. And again, I said last week, Rob, but the dirty freeloaders who listen on podcast platforms only, we pay to keep that service running for them. So they want to be clicking join down below and chipping in a little bit, because all the YouTube folks do wonders over here. But yeah, all them people who just commute to work, I can see you in your car right now.
Yeah, if you're in your car and you're like you're angry that traffic's not moving fast enough, like I have no sympathy for you.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you. Even though I'm one of those people for many podcasts out there. I don't know where this has came from. I've started really just doubling down on the audio folks, and you need to start supporting us. But no, of course, we appreciate everyone out there who does watch along and comments and helps with the algorithm and such, and the wonderful members in our Discord server as well. But we couldn't do it without the Guild Heroes, so thank you very much. Right, Rob, story number 1 for the week. We had Xbox's Developer Direct for 2025. They've done this for 3 years now, so they've set a decent cadence. They like to kickstart the year with a little bit of showcase. One thing I do want to commend them on straight away is the visual presentation of this whole showcase is best in class. The transitions between it, the way they go around the studios, the staff all look like they're having a great time recording it. They leave outtakes in. There was some really funny moments. I think one in particular with Doom when the release revealed talking about the name, and there was 2 of them stood there, and one of them went Doom the Dark Ages, and the guy next to him literally mouths it to himself quietly, and then as soon as it ends he goes, I don't know why I mouthed that out loud, that's so sad. And then they had a little laugh, and they left it in, and it made it feel like just the passionate creative people who are just having fun, and they're allowed to make what they want to. Mm-hmm. And it's just showcased, and more importantly, we got a dates, I should say, for a bunch of games, and the best thing about it all is they're all coming pretty much within the next 3 or so months. It was one of those.
The cadence was really impressive.
Rip the plaster off and just go, right, it's all coming in a matter of weeks. If not today, because they did the stealth drop as well. So let's start at the top. We got Ninja Gaiden 4 was announced and revealed by Koei Tecmo. They're teaming with Platinum Games as well, which are renowned for this type of hack and slash action game. Team Ninja, of course, announced the return of the beloved franchise with the reveal of Ninja Gaiden 4 after more than a decade, and the Masters of Action teamed with Platinum Games to bring you the Xbox Game Studios published next chapter in the Ninja Gaiden series. We are introduced to Yakumo, a new protagonist whose objective lies at the heart of a devastated Tokyo on his mission. He will not only encounter fiends and demons, but also the legendary master ninja himself, Ryu Hayabusa. Gameplay footage shows Yakumo will introduce players to a new stylish take on the ninja action with blood-bind ninjutsu, alongside legacy techniques like the Flying Swallow and a Zuna Drop, which means nothing to me at all. Ryu will also return as a playable character with a revamped arsenal that stays true to his signature brutality and precision. Ninja Gaiden, Rob, famed platformer from way back in the day. Obviously, it's been modernised somewhat, a lot, and even more so in this entry by the looks of it. It looks very Stellar Blade almost, I would say, to put a near title on it that's just came out recently. Any history of Ninja Gaiden? Any thoughts on the look of this one?
I can't remember which one I had when I was younger, but I remember I think it was when one of your parents gets you a game.
Yeah.
Just doesn't, you don't specifically ask for it, but your dad thinks it looks like a cool cover, so you just end up with it.
Box art does all the talking back in the 90s.
Yeah, and I remember playing it, and maybe it was just the mechanics I just wasn't used to, or I just wasn't skilled in that type of game. But I just failed so spectacularly that it was kind of like the Driver 1 tutorial situation for me.
Just could never get past it.
I don't know what the hell it was. I just could not grasp the mechanics of this game. So it just sat on a shelf forever. And when my dad asked me, are you enjoying that game? The only thing I could think, because I didn't want to disappoint myself.
Yeah. How's the game, son?
Yeah, it's shit, Dad. It's
thanks for spending 40 quid on it.
Yeah, so I just told him that I happened to be playing Dynasty Warriors 2 or 3 at a time. I just told him this that was it, and that's how it worked. It worked in because he just was never interested in games. He never cottoned on. So that's how I saved my dad's feelings, and never ever played Ninja Gaiden again.
Never got beyond it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the same, and I've done that before as well. Me and my brother used to swap out games that were Christmas presents and just play like the new version, put the old version into, like, say it was GTA San Andreas. We put Vice City into the box to be wrapped up for Christmas. Played San Andreas for like 3 months leading up to Christmas, and then your mum comes in and goes, "Oh, how's the new game?" It's like, we kind of finished it a few weeks ago, but yeah,
great.
thanks, it's great. We're playing it. What's that you're playing? Oh, the old one. Ah, yeah, we can't wait for the new one, mum. Thanks. Oh, we were terrible kids, but yeah, Ninja Gaiden. I'm same. I know it's got like a following. It has that not almost cult status almost, but it's renowned enough, and it's gone through so many generations and iterations over the years with other titles that it's nice to see it kind of return. It's been over 10 years, as they do say. I know Team Ninja do some great stuff, Platinum Games do some great stuff as well, and I think Platinum Games was on the ropes a little bit recently with a couple of not flops but not meeting expectations, I think, of late. So it's nice to see them kind of pair with maybe a bit of like a security blanket of Microsoft. It's published by them, and we've seen Microsoft kind of step in and throw the cash around, which is no surprise. It's backed up here by Game Pass, so it's kind of got that like Microsoft money feeding the machine almost.
I think the thing is, you don't have to like live and die on every single title they bring out like they have in the past, right? Like it's and that like that necessitates you don't take many risks because you know it's just not worth like your kind of livelihood.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a positive for them.
Yeah, and this was the only one that didn't have an actual date, but it did say fall 2025, so we'll see it later on this year. And this is the world we live in. This is from the Xbox Wire blog post. They actively just say, and it's coming to PS5 and PC as well. So they don't even like shy away from like, if this was a PlayStation blog, would they hell mention Xbox anywhere on there? But the tides have turned. So coming to Game Pass, that was one thing they kind of opened up the developer direct with, saying everything shown is coming to Game Pass day one. So it was like, sweet. Everything I'm about to see in the next half an hour, I get for free. It's going to feel like, which is sweet as anything. And then they teased us, Rob. Not only did they show us Ninja Gaiden 4 as a brand new entry, the kind of trailer almost like restart, and we saw the same thing it looked like over again. The same logos popping up, the same gameplay. And then it turns out that actually the highly acclaimed and legendary game from 2008, Ninja Gaiden 2, is getting a remaster. Ninja Gaiden 2 Black features high-speed interaction from that classical hero Ryu and his deadly dragon sword as he embarks on a global battle against formidable foes engaged in relentless combat, and they've added some additional characters in as well from the roster. So, and then the best thing about that is it was out now. They dropped it there and then they went, the new one's going to come in the autumn, but now we've teased you, why not have the probably the best entry in the series so far now? For free on Game Pass. Go fill your boots. And I think this is one of Richie's. I don't know if he's been paying attention or not, but I feel like Ninja Gaiden would be maybe more in his wheelhouse than mine. So. But yeah, they showed off Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. So part of me is like, oh, you could have done number 1 just to like that Resident Evil issue that I've got going on. Our audience know all about this, but it's like, oh, why not just go back and start the beginning? Because I think everyone would have been, even though the 2 is the higher regarded, I feel like people would have been happy with 1, and then we get 4 later this year, then maybe 2 next year, then 3, and then we've got the full set in a fully beautifully realised modern setting.
I guess it's like, what's the thing that's going to inject the most hype instantly, right? And like obviously dropping it on announcement is one part of it, but I think number 2 does a bit of a better job of that.
Yeah. So there it is. That came out, and that was the way they just kickstarted the event. So that got kind of loads of great hype behind it, heading into it. As part of the blog, I do want to mention and get it in as well. They also have dated Avowed. I don't think we had it. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but Avowed, which is the entry, Obsidian's Fest entry for the year. Also got a date. It's at the end of the blog post, weirdly enough, but it wasn't in the showcase. I think because I've already spoke about it quite a lot at the summer showcase, and I think it was at the Game Awards as well. They're almost like, I think, concerned of showing too much too soon now. Obsidian's RPG comes out February 18th, so it's actually the first one you're going to get out of this full list. Back to, again, Richie's point, I think he's the most interested in Avowed. He's just ready to play it now. You're also in the RPG one, Rob, with like Dragon Age and stuff in the past. Where are you sitting with Avowed now? We're on the cusp of it's literally like 3-4 weeks out now.
I think for me, it's the time commitment that's like stopping me getting hyped about it. Like everything about it looks great, and like I get it. Like as part of my sub, so like in a perfect world, I would be playing it day one. But like I guess like life as a gamer in like the mid-30s is like I play things as and when I get through the last thing.
Yeah.
And judging by your comments on like, there's still a lot of Indiana Jones to get through. Like, I'd like to start in Feb, like maybe even March, to be honest, which is a bit of a shame. But no, like in terms of like excitement on a pure objective basis on what the game looks like, yeah, I'm all for it. It's just like trying to wrap it around your like subjective existence, I guess.
Yeah, it's if it gets the timing right for me, I think it's one with Avowed in particular I've not had really that much interest in. And then when we've seen some of the stuff at the Game Awards, I think they came out with the trailer for Outer Worlds 2, and immediately like the humor and the comedy in that looked more in my kind of wheelhouse, where in a weird way Microsoft immediately had me split going, well, I'd rather play this game now, and they're both from the same company, so it's almost like oversaturation of RPGs, which I think when you look at Microsoft's list of development studios, they do lean heavily into RPGs. It's almost like Sony have that same problem, but there's this third-person action adventure. It's like there's no delineation between studios, and they do mix it up a little bit, but there's almost like that familiarity, but too familiar. Which is why there's some games we'll get to on the list later on that actually call to me a little bit more. So we'll pick up with Richie regarding Avowed, but again, to put the dates on them, it's pretty much kicking things off. February 18th with the first one. Obviously, we've got Ninja Gaiden now, but then they went on to showcase a couple more games. Next up was another behind-the-scenes look at South of Midnight, which is the one we know from Compulsion Games. It takes place, it's Hazel as our protagonist. She takes place in the dark, magical world of kind of the southern gothic folklore of North America. We see encounters that are mythical, larger-than-life creatures who shape her growth and understand her newfound powers. The kind of story trailer shows her having an argument with her mother in the middle of a hurricane, almost like Wizard of Oz style. And then she kind of gets out into the world and she discovers she's got this like connection with the ethereal world. A little bit like Banish's Ghosts of New Eden, ironically, that I played at the beginning of last year. And this is the one for me that really stands out purely because of the art style. It's got that Into the Spider-Verse frame rate drop that makes it, the cartoon aesthetic really, really jump out at the screen. And the gameplay just looks fun. It reminds me of Kena Bridge of Spirits meets kind of Ghosts of New Eden, which like with that again like Southern American charm and stuff of like almost like New Orleans style, where they're in the bayou, the swampy, there's like alligators and everything's like got like bright like green and brown tones and stuff. But America in the Deep South. What's this one doing for you, Rob? Fighting giant catfish and crocodile alligator things, and
so this is like I'm kind of a bit kind of done with, well, not done, but like I've had enough of like kind of like, the gothic kind of tale type of story, you know. I was like I kind of like ran out of that aesthetic. So when this kind of I first saw this, I was like, and I saw the description of it because I didn't watch like the showcase, like sorry, the direct live. I was like, this seems like a bit more of the same. But then when I actually like watched the trailer, and for me, it is that kind of infusion of like those like Southern culture, like references, particularly when it came to like the cat, like the big giant catfish. I don't know why, like that just looks so like beautiful and so like unlike anything like that kind of came before from a stylistic perspective. That like it got me back into it.
There's something unique about it, and that kind of southern gothicness of it. I don't think we've seen that much in video games before. And I recall a couple of months ago they really went in depth about saying like they went into the Deep South, they sent the devs there, and they got proper musicians from in and around like New Orleans and stuff, and southern states, and got them to really do it. So like the voice acting and stuff was all like authentic. They went and spoke to like historians and stuff, and really dug deep into the culture. So I'm hoping, similar in the way to like Ghost of Tsushima and stuff, I'm hoping to learn more about like the Deep South through this game, about like, again, they do lean into like witchcraft a little bit and such. So I think this could be a really, really good one from Compulsion. And the previous game, We Happy Few, had that kind of like creepy, eerie vibe to it as well. And they've got that threaded throughout this. Yeah. But for me, it's one of those where I look at it and I think it's not going to be too long either. It's going to be quite respectful of my time, where I reckon this is going to clock in probably around 15 hours for the story, which is like, as you said, a gamer in your mid-30s, it's like the sweet spot. Yeah. And they're ticking a lot of boxes for me.
Yeah, I think another thing as well, like I think like last year I talked a bit about how I was kind of bored of the space horror dystopian combo, and I was like, I'm just so done with this genre. Like I want something new. And like when something this comes along, like this comes along, even if it doesn't kind of grab you with both hands, I think if you're someone like me who's in the past complained about, a bit of sameness in terms of genre, you have to like support and give this like a chance because they've done something different.
Yeah.
It seems like they've executed really well, but at the same time they could have missed the mark and it'd be a disaster because of like the source material.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you do have to like support devs who are taking risks like this.
Yeah. Yeah, they could have easily just done another We Happy Few sequel.
Yeah.
And that would have been like okay for sales. But I think in terms of new IP, you could do a new IP, but I think to do it well and to capture people's imaginations before the game's even out, I think does a lot. And I like what they've said so far about saying like it's not going to be necessarily combat focused. I think you get into almost like arenas and fight loads of bad guys, then a boss fight, and then it's back to exploration. So I like the thought of like running around like the bayou type area, like hopping on crocodiles and logs and stuff, because the climb and traversal looks very much like a combination of Spider-Man and Kena Bridge of Spirits, like with a couple of spells. Like I think at one point in the trailer she casts like a ethereal wall to like wall run along and then hops back down. And it's like that between like little pockets of land in amongst the swamp looks really cool. So yeah, I think it's all just coming together quite nicely for them. And as I said, it got a date. They finally dated it for April 8th. So again, not that far away. Like it's crazy that we get this as we're heading into February, and then they've got a AAA free Game Pass title just dropping bang at the beginning of April. So fantastic timings. The 1-2 punch from Xbox there. Moving on a little bit to the next next expedition. Then the next release we spoke about was Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which I still hate the name, Rob. I really do. Like they could have just called it Expedition 33. They don't need to add like a random. Is it a name? Is it a place? Is it Latin for something? Like
I thought it was a character name.
Is it from a franchise? Like that's the name of the franchise, and this is like.
This is the thing. Like if it was an established character, then put it at the start. But it seems like a bit kind of.
It's the same issue. Me and Richie have with the Naughty Dog game Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet. It's like you don't need that bit on the end. Like if it's your first game, just call it Intergalactic. That's cool enough on its own, and then maybe the sequel add something to it, like as instead of calling it Intergalactic 2, like add something to it.
The trouble is, like, the thought of like two really cool names, and we're like,
which one?
We can't decide. Let's just put a colon in there.
Yeah.
Like,
so yeah, Claire Obscure Expedition 33. I got another trailer. This is from a second party game. This is Sandfall Interactive developing their first game. And they really, really showed off this game. It had the kind of longest trailer amongst them, but for those who can't remember, this is a turn-based RPG, so think in line with like Persona games, or more recently you've got your Metaphor ReFantasio, running on Unreal 5. It's set in a fantasy version of the late 19th century France, where the world is facing an existential threat 1 year at a time. They're basically the big bad character that you kind of see pulling the strings in the background. The world's set up where every year the entire group of human beings that are at that age die. Like, regardless, they just drop dead. Or they fade away like Avengers style, I think they get dusted. So basically, every year these humans send out an expedition to kill the big villain. And every year, obviously, they failed. And we're now, as humanity, as a species, we're down to Expedition 33. So that's everyone who's 33 years old. Get your shit together, let's go kill this woman. And obviously we're running out of time now, because the younger you start getting, you've got like 5-year-olds ain't gonna have a fucking chance.
Well, we've already run out of time.
You, me and Richie are dead.
Yeah.
Our era
we died
failed.
on Expedition 31.
And that premise sounds fantastic. And they showed like the open world map where they've introduced these wacky characters that they look like something out of Kojima's mind, where there's like a giant balloon man who can float, and that's how you get around the mini map on his back, like a giant balloon. And then there's like spider creatures and stuff, but its reactive turn-based system looks to innovate the graphics. But for me, it kind of makes it look, if you took like Persona and Metaphor, it'd give it like a steampunk 19th century France vibe, and everyone's going to die if they don't kill this big bad. This is the one that's really like looks fresh to me. There's something about it. The colour palette's a little bit samey. Like, it does lean into that steampunk aesthetic, like Lies of P, sorry. And like even like Ghosts of New Eden stuff that we've had previously. But not as a turn-based RPG. Like, I usually look at Persona and go, like, it looks cool. Visually, it looks cool. But there's something about this, it's maybe too Japanese for me, like too anime for me, and I'm not really that way inclined. Whereas this one, it's doing it, and it's a first game. Like, it looks stunning for the first game, but I think we're in that world where once you have access to Unreal 5, you can just do wonders with it now. Like, you don't have to be a seasoned veteran to do amazing things. But yeah, I'm just going to call it Expedition 33. What's your take on it, Rob?
Honestly, like, when you look at this game, apart from like some of the more, I guess, like non-standard, like steampunk aesthetics, you could mistake it for like a Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, and to me, it looks kind of. It has like a similar polish. It has like a similar kind of like the more modern combat systems. So this for me, I do want to play it, but I feel like it's going to suffer because I still haven't played the second Final Fantasy remake yet. So I feel like this will get shuffled out in favour of that.
Which of the two would I probably like?
Yeah.
One's a known quantity, isn't it? And then that's the problem with the new IP. It's like we've got Final Fantasy at home. You don't need the new Claire Obscura Expedition 33.
Like, ridiculously enough, I think I would probably play this around like next Christmas when I have that solid time off again.
Yeah,
and like that's a real shame because it does look like a really solid game.
Yeah, if it again, Metaphor ReFantazio, although it was a seasoned studio, were familiar with it. If they can land anywhere near, like, that got a lot of Game of the Year awards, and I think the way this has got that, I think even just the combat alone, if they could nail that down, the rest of the story could fall into place. But yeah, it's just doing something. There's something aesthetically about it that I really like the look of visually. And
I think it's kind of like just like there's a couple of frames where I feel like they've just like lifted Jenna Ortega's face.
Yeah, they know what they're doing sometimes with what they've got, but they showed off a lot more. They showed off like the deep customization of it, some new characters that you're going to meet, the traversal of the open world became so big they needed to figure out a mini map after the fact. So obviously the game ballooned, and I just hope with it being their first game, then they're not overstretching. Like, just reel in that fresh creativity a little bit, and think like, right, let's keep some stuff for a potential sequel. Let's not like put all of our eggs in one basket too much.
Yeah, it's not uncommon for like a dev team to get led by the game when they're a bit less experienced compared to like them leading a game, right?
Yeah, because you'd imagine at a proven studio that to be able to lean back on the history and go like, right, cut that. We don't need that. Let's streamline here. And yeah, I feel like with it being the first game, it could be so easy to go like, oh, this is great. I've got another idea. Put that in as well. And then it becomes like too many layers and mechanics and side quests. It's like, actually, you could have like nipped this in a lot tighter and just told a great story. But I have faith in them. From what I've seen, the way the devs were talking very passionately about it, I'm excited for it. And again, the great thing with it being on Game Pass is we get to check it out. April 24th, it got dated for. So again, not too long behind South of Midnight. If I'm really into South of Midnight, I've essentially got 2 weeks to wrap that up. So I do hope South of Midnight is a nice 15-hour story. Yeah. So then I don't have anything on the pipeline for this. And watch Xbox go and drop freaking Indiana Jones bang in between these or something on PlayStation. It's like, oh, why do it to me? But that wasn't our final game, Rob. We also got that, as I mentioned, launching on April 24th. But Xbox rounded out the showcase by looking at their biggest game, which we knew it was going to be their biggest game. And this is Doom the Dark Ages. Got, again, another deep dive into it. They kind of said, they laid out the lay of the land and said that Doom the Dark Ages is actually a prequel to the critically acclaimed Doom 2016, which was the first like reboot they did a couple of years back. And then they went on to Doom Eternal, which was also fantastic, which is the dark fantasy sci-fi world. And they made a point of saying the first one was quick and frenetic, and it was all about like moving and non-stop, Doom 2016. Then they said in Eternal we went traversal, and it went all like linear, up and down, jumping around and like kind of flying in the sky at the same time. They said this one, they grounded you, and they wanted to make you feel like an absolute tank in a unit in this one. Yeah. So you've got the chainsaw shield, you can block and deflect more, and basically they're saying all three games are unique in their own combat style, but they ultimately want you to feel like an absolute powerhouse still. So they kind of went through the different pillars. They broke down their trailer quite smartly into combat, exploration, and story. They did also confirm there's no multiplayer coming with this one because, and I think the quote directly from the devs as well, we wanted to make a badass single player where you felt like a demon slayer. So they basically said the most like hardcore sci-fi dark fantasy answer you could possibly say, and everyone was like, all right, fair enough. You don't need to
if we make like a balanced multiplayer, it just won't feel like Doom.
You
basically.
don't need it. But yeah, everything they showed off it looked great. Like the blocks, the specials, the powers, and everything. Like I've always appreciated Doom from afar. I've played little bits of 2016 and Eternal. I've enjoyed every moment of it, but I've never. With shooters, I tend to find I phase out quite quickly. Like I'll enjoy a couple of, even with like Black Ops 6, I enjoy like probably half, if not more, of the campaign.
Yeah.
And then just one day I just stopped playing it. I was like, I've had my fill of first-person shooters. But there's something about this setting, the Dark Ages, like being sent back in time to basically help out with medieval era, but you've also got guns and a chainsaw shield. Come on. Like, the weapons alone are so sick. And obviously hardcore rock music as well to go along with it.
I think the only thing I need to like see for this is like the first 3 letters of the title, which is like DOOO. Like, there's not many of the games which like once I've got that, I'm pretty sure like someone says Doom, I'm like Doom, I'm playing it. Like, I don't need anything else. Like, just give me more.
The quality.
Like,
I think that's what they said in their quote as well. It was like, we wanted to make you feel like a tank, so you could ride a giant dragon and fight in a mech suit or something. And it was like, yeah, okay, yeah, because that is what you do. Not only you Doomslayer, you've also got a part of this game. You're going to be inside a giant mech, and then also you're going to be riding on the back of a demon dragon. So
you know that scene in Space Marine 2 when like you fight alongside the Dreadnought for a bit?
Oh yeah.
And there's that giant dragon thing, and he just like punts like a big pillar at it, and he's like, "I cast you down." Like, that's the vibes I want from this.
I love that. Yeah, the Dreadnought was cool in Space Marine, especially when you first meet him. He kind of smashes through the wall and kills someone, and he's like, "Which way to hell?" or something. It's like, "Oh, that way, sir." And he's like, "Yes, Commander." And it just barrages through all the enemies in front of you. Yeah, there is something to be said about a giant mech suit, isn't there? That does wonders. But I think Doom with Microsoft, it's like it's such a known quantity, and the last 2 have been so good. The Dark Age is just like, yeah, it's the end of like the trilogy, I guess, and I wouldn't be surprised if id get my kind of move on to like a new project, because they can't just keep making Doom. It's not with that quality and talent that they've got.
Especially now after doing this like approach of making like new mechanics and new feel as well. Like, that quickly,
absolutely,
it gets harder and harder, right?
And they did it again, May 15th. So between like now and like the middle of May, Xbox are delivering. Absolutely.
I feel like I'm like set for most of the year. Like, right, I was on the fence about cancelling my Game Pass membership once I'd finished Indiana Jones. And like, if this has turned me around to like from that decision now.
Yeah, and that's not even including like all the little interstitial things that they naturally drop. Like, there's usually a couple of games a month that get dropped onto Game Pass, and like, again, me and Richie are still playing through like Halo and Gears of War at like the slowest rate known to man. But like, we both paid our Series S subscription things off back in October, I think. And we're both, I think, Game Pass has just became part of my life now, which is one of them subscriptions that just sit like Disney Plus, that just sits there coming out of my bank account every month. I don't bat an eyelid at it because I feel like I definitely get my money's worth from it. And to think like between now and essentially nearly summer, there's something pretty much every month, if not 2 things every month now. And I must ask the question, has Xbox finally got their dominoes in a row, which they always said is they wanted a big AAA game every quarter, and this is kind of over-delivering on it. I do hope we don't go to the second half of the end like, we got nothing, guys. Sorry. From May onwards, we got nothing.
Like, we're just done. Like, we missed the Christmas.
They'll have a Call of Duty in the autumn, which will hold them over massively.
Yeah.
But they have, like, I think me and Richie discussed it a couple of weeks back at the start of the year. A couple of weeks back, it's still January somehow. At the start of the year, we did our Xbox kind of forecasting ahead episode, and we listed all of their devs. And like, kid you not, they have like 22 first-party studios now. It's ridiculous, insane. Right? And yet, I guess they've got stuff to put out later this year. Like, and then that's not even talking about the port as well. So between this, every one of them games has pretty much come to PlayStation and PC. So these aren't exclusives. They're coming at some point. I think the only one they didn't really talk about was South of Midnight. I think that's the only one. Doom, obviously, it's got history. It's already on PlayStation, so that makes sense because there's already a user base there. Clair Obscura obviously isn't first party, so they don't really have a say on that one. Ninja Gaiden isn't first party, so they don't have a say on that one. Obviously, they could have paid for it. Avowed, I think, is the other one they haven't confirmed yet, but the cadence in which we're getting Indiana Jones like mere months after the launch on Xbox. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Avowed follow maybe the back end of this year. And then that's everything released from the developer direct. But again, overall, I think I just want to commend them on like how good of an overall showcase it was. I think it sets up, if people are looking at Microsoft going like, yeah, their consoles aren't selling well, but as game makers, I think this is fantastic. I don't think there's anything I looked at in that showcase and I was like, that looks bad.
If we compare the position they were in last year as well, I think like they've definitely kind of took the blows off that and like, it's like, okay, let's try to, come on, we got to do better than this type of thing.
Yeah, and will the pendulum finally swing? Because all we've done the last couple of weeks is talk about shit on PlayStation for like cancelling things and projects. I think last week, me and Richie were talking about, I don't know if you've read it or picked it up on, but basically the Bluepoint Studios, who are the ones who did Demon Souls remake, we thought they were working on maybe like a new IP, a new remaster of some sort. They're basically, game was scrapped completely, and they're starting from scratch. Just absolutely from scratch. So whatever they've been doing since 2019 when the PS5 launched, done. All canned.
It's weird because like it seems like obviously this feeds into the next story, but it feels like Sony are definitely kind of I don't know, they lost a bit of confidence or something. I don't know what it is, but it feels like they're second guessing them every single step they're taking at the moment.
I mean, Jim Ryan obviously left at the end of last year, and seemingly these are a lot of projects that he greenlit under his tenure, and then now he's left. Herman Hulst, who's taken over from him in that position, will have also had a hand in it, but essentially between The Last of Us multiplayer game going, apparently Bluepoint were working on a God of War live service game as well, which is like, of all the studios to put on, not only do they not make multiplayer games, they're not familiar with God of War, although they did help out in Ragnarok between 21 and 22. Why? So that's all scrapped, that's done. Ben's studio, who of course did the much-loved Days Gone, but apparently hated internally Days Gone, there's a scrapped as well. Whatever they were working on, also scrapped. So Days Gone, who haven't put anything out since Days Gone, whatever they did, also scrapped. And they're also starting from scratch again. So it's like two AAA first-party studios gone. Yeah. Concord
almost a decade of work.
Yeah,
right.
It's shocking. And then Concord came out, shit the bed, shut down, closed the studio. That's gone. Naughty Dog are obviously working on The Last of Us and Intergalactic. And then like kind of thing, Horizon 3 inevitably is what Guerrilla are working on. So it's almost, before you know it, they don't really have much in the pipeline. It's kind of like we're probably past the halfway point of the PS5 life cycle. And I don't feel like we've seen that much from them. Like we keep saying like it must be next year, but aside from Insomniac, who just can shit out games like nobody's business, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Ratchet and Clank, Spider-Man 2, no doubt Venom probably by the end of the year. Spider-Man 3 will be out. Then Wolverine's also in the pipeline. Like they're cooking over there. Like let them do their own stuff. But the rest of the studios just seem like they can't catch a break at the moment. And as you said,
like you have to think as well that like obviously with the work that Microsoft have done over the past couple of years, just like let's call it for what it's like land grabbing studios.
Yeah.
Like if Sony needed to kind of bolster their roster, there's a lot less prospects out there now than there was a year ago, right?
I mean, remember they absolutely spaffed 3-something billion on Bungie. And all that's happened then is Destiny's players have gone down, down, down. No one seems to give a shit about Marathon. And now they're like, we just spent a ton of money on what? And it's done nothing but burn a hole in their pockets. So it's you got to wonder, like, they seemingly had everything right. Like, make third-person action-adventure games that have story and character. Like, do what you know. And they went, ooh, live service looks good. Look at Fortnite and Call of Duty and Apex Legends. Like, we want some of that. Take all of our studios, get them to work on one of them projects, will you? And then it's like after wasting probably $500-600 million, they go, ooh, and just as they're so close to the finish line as well, 5 years into development, they go, there's no way of monetizing this shit. Back to what you did before. And it's like, well, that's going to take us 5 more years, sir. It's like, shit, we are really stuck right now because now people want PS5 games. And they're fortunate that they make really good second-party deals. Like last year was backed up by Stellar Blade, Rise of Ronin, stuff they don't make. Final Fantasy, Square Enix, like it wasn't made by them. And then they were saved at the end, like Clutch, Astrobot coming in clutch by a tiny little indie studio that made like a game in less than 3 years, wins Game of the Year. But yeah, the reason we wanted to talk about if the pendulum swings is because we've heard rumours this week that another PlayStation game's been cancelled, and this one is in the form of one of the many, many Horizon games that are out there. We know we had Zero Dawn Remastered before Christmas. We've obviously got Forbidden West. We then had the PC ports came out as well. And no doubt Guerrilla are working on a third entry in the series to kind of wrap that story up. We got the VR title, Call the Mountain, from Firesprite. They're still probably working on some VR game. But then we knew they'd farmed out the Horizon IP to other studios. And if you remember, before Christmas, we got the Lego Horizon Adventures, which was the tiny little Lego game in between. That came out. I enjoyed it. Me and Richie both got the platinum in it. It was a nice little palette cleanser of a game. Beautiful. But we knew there was an MMO in the works and there's a multiplayer game in the works. The multiplayer game is apparently worked on internally at Guerrilla, so we don't have to worry about that one until Sony decide to cancel it in 2-3 years' time. But there was an MMO, and it was farmed out to a South Korean studio, NCSoft, which have only made like a couple of small titles in the past. But this earlier this week, they came out and said that they had a strategic partnership with Sony, which is why we know it's the Horizon game based on the franchise. At the time, Jim Ryan, the previously mentioned Jim Ryan, said the partnership advances our strategy and expands beyond console and broadens PlayStation's reach to a wider audience. Like Sony Interactive Entertainment, NCSoft shares a similar vision of creating high-quality, impactful entertainment, etc., etc. The game, named both Project H and Project Skyline internally, was apparently targeting PS5, PC, and mobile as part of PlayStation's aims to reach out for more players. So looking for that Fortnite model where you can play it on every device, and the quality, it kind of doesn't really matter because the game's kind of just accessible on all devices. But that game apparently is cancelled now because NCSoft earlier this week put out a statement saying, let's make 2025 a year of bone-crushing efforts with the mindset that we don't turn around by the end of the year. NCSoft will never have a future if they don't turn around by the end of the year. So they've had a round of layoffs last October. Yeah, absolutely. And then they've revealed through the publication, I think, like, I don't know if it's the finances or not, but basically the previously mentioned Project H has been cancelled as part of a feasibility review. And that seemed to be the Horizon game that we're talking on. However, we have had an update since then to this story. The unannounced MMO might not have been cancelled because apparently an email shared from RuliWeb or something to do with a Korean reporter. It's basically told a reader that Project H mentioned has nothing to do with Horizon. So Project H has nothing to do with Horizon. It also, in all their internal stuff, it uses the same font as Horizon.
Yeah, this is some shenanigans going on.
Apparently, that's not. It's Project Skyline, which is rumoured to be Horizon. So it may still be alive, it may not. But basically, something's been cancelled at NCSoft. It seems to have been Horizon. It's one of them where it's like looking at PlayStation's recent history, like literally last week, they cancelled 2 of their own internal online service games. Why would they let a second party keep doing it? Like, especially if Guerrilla are doing an internal multiplayer game. Like, I think we've all said on this podcast before, I think Horizon's been at a saturation point where they risk putting too many things out. And I would rather have a multiplayer from the people who made it originally than a random company in South Korea who might make good games but have never done Horizon before to then go make an MMO.
Yeah, I think the choice of wordings are interesting as well. Like a feasibility issues or feasibility check or whatever. Like that to me, like obviously like don't have inside knowledge or whatever, but that like kind of plants the seed of like they've maybe like bidded too little on the contract, and then like they've went to actually build and they're like, good God, like this is too much game for us to kind of shoulder the responsibility on, which leans into it being like Sony pulling the strings as opposed to like them doing another project. But it's just weird wording.
Yeah, it's like when you see any project now, like is it the H2 railway thing down south where like the project ballooned to like 5 times more than the original costing quota. It's like, did they have this game? They developed it for like 2 years so far. The timeline needs another 2 to 3 years in the oven, and they do a feasibility study and go, yeah, this is going to cost way more to get up and running, and then the server costs, and then running it, and then when you look at Concord and the lack of sales, are like, will it sell well? Like, because they're not proven quantities, especially as a studio, and the way Horizon, like, remember Forbidden West sold less than the original Horizon Zero Dawn, so traditionally a sequel usually goes up, and it didn't. And I think even recently, Shuhei Yoshida, who's just left PlayStation at the beginning of the year, he did an interview with Kind of Funny, and one of his things, they said, like, what was one of your biggest disappointments while working at PlayStation? And he said, Horizon Forbidden West not doing as well as he thought, because it seemed like a shoe-in. Like, the first one did millions, it sold like 20-odd million, and then the second one sold, I think, less than 15. So it's like, where's that are people bored of robot dinosaurs now? Is it the game? Is it the woke Aloy? Like, what's the the deal with it?
I think it's just one of them things where it's like there's been like a lot of like, you know, Sony sees figures coming out, and like there's been like lots of times where I've had like really like stuck air between the teeth and be like, you know, like not again type of thing. So like going back to like the initial point, I can see how the confidence is really wavering on like these types of titles. But then you have the flip side, which is like single player, which is where like I think the industry, like the gamers want it to go.
Yeah.
Those games are more and more expensive to make at a decent quality, and like they kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, it's that world of like realistically, like even the best PlayStation games like The Last of Us and stuff only sell 15 million, upwards of 18, 20 at best.
Yeah.
But then you look at something like Mario Kart on the Switch sold like 90 million or something, and it's like you just cannot predict it. But in a world where ever-present games like Fortnite and like Call of Duty Warzone and stuff don't pull players away, the younger generations coming through, they would have in the past traditionally, like we were talking about earlier on the show, for their birthday, Mum, Dad, can I have the new Assassin's Creed game? Mum, Dad, can I have the new whatever, the PlayStation God of War Horizon game? And now they're like, can I have another Fortnite season pass? Can I have another Call of Duty battle pass? And they just keep sticking to those traditional games. And like we've seen it with like the PS4 is still well and truly alive because those games run fine on that. So no one needs a PS5 necessarily or an Xbox Series because the PS4 and the Xbox One still play Fortnite fine. They still play Warzone fine. So what's that next big thing? We will see later on this year with GTA. I really think GTA is going to set the industry on fire like 10 times over, and you'll see sales and everything. Everything will rise with it. But until that drops from Rockstar, single-player games, it's like it is such a risky business. And like you said, I think we saw quotes last week. The last couple of Call of Duties cost like 300 million to make, and every year it was like 350, 450, and then we didn't even have figures for the last two, but I think the data was a few years old, but it's like the last, I think Modern Warfare 2 remaster was something like 400 million to make. It's like The Last of Us was only 200, so it's like
and like the
double.
expectation keeps magnifying with each game, right?
Yeah, and I mean, every time we see it, like Ubisoft sales and they go, we're not happy with it. Final Fantasy comes out and Square Enix go, we're not happy with sales. It's like either expectations are set totally wrong, or something's not right with like pricing. And I think there's rumors this week going around like GTA 6 is going to be £100, $100, and people will pay it.
Yeah.
Like,
because the thing is, like,
I'll do it.
like me too, begrudgingly, but I will. Like, I think now people are so kind of set in their ecosystems of like what games they play, and I think smarter, well, not necessarily smarter, but more kind of maybe marketing-led developers have caught on to the fact that like if you can build like a hub or a system around like a franchise, which kind of like you get sucked into, like Call of Duty does it with like their launcher, and like I absolutely hate it.
So
like,
much
so
going
confusing.
on,
like so like but they know that like there's like marketing players in there which like is getting people sticking to that ecosystem, and it's as more people start to do like that, like obviously we're seeing Ubisoft take what looks like that step, like it's going to be really, really hard to pull people out of that into new titles.
And it's in another world, it's the best thing. Like if you weren't as broad as a thing, especially you, me, Richie, and I think our audience, where we want to try different things. Like I think we've passed that point where we just sit and play one game forever. Like we do like to dabble around, and like I think because we've been around for, like you said, you were playing Battle for Middle Earth. Like we've also got a massive backlog. I was talking to one of our friends earlier this week, saying like, "What are you up to?" And I'm playing Sly Cooper, and he's gone back and he's playing some PS3 titles. I think he's gone back to Arkham Asylum and Arkham Knight, and it was like, yeah, I've done that this week. Like I went back and played some older games. I've played Star Wars Force Unleashed earlier on this week, just because I was like, why not? And it's just mad how the industry's so different and the scope of like the gamers themselves are. But you're touching at a point there, which will bring us on to the next story, is Ubisoft's long gestated Assassin's Creed Infinity. Don't know why I said that word, Infinity, or also now known as the retitled Animus Hub, has been something of a mystery for quite some time, Rob. We've covered it a good couple of times in this show. It's been mentioned at a couple of Ubisoft conferences over the years, but we finally know what it is. They revealed a trailer this week that shows off what it's going to look like. Now, Assassin's Creed, I guess the Animus Hub it's known as now, it's going to launch with Assassin's Creed Shadows later this year, and it seems to be similar to you mentioning there about the Call of Duty hub, it seems to be the place for all that. It's broken into 4 pillars: memories, projects, exchange, and the vault, which is very confusing still. But it's a new start screen that when you load up an Assassin's Creed game, starting with Shadows, it's not a separate launcher. It doesn't have to be installed or updated. It's just part of the game. When you start up, you will see the memories, the projects, exchange, and vault. Now, the memories is going to be your actual games, and it's going to show you a timeline, essentially like a chronological timeline of like years in our history. And as you scroll through, you will see Shadows, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Assassin's Creed Origins, and Mirage. So all the recent like current gen entries listed in there. Then under the projects banner is going to be in-game mission content. So basically they're going to drop new content for those games. They didn't specify if it was just Shadows or older titles too. Because remember, we did see... we got like a random couple of stories for Assassin's Creed Odyssey, like almost like 2 years after the fact, that linked in Odyssey with Origins, if I recall, and it was like 2 mini stories that dropped. So Ubisoft are clearly happy to go back to their older titles. So the projects is going to be like new mission drops, like every other month there's going to be like new missions in this game. The exchange element is going to be the rewards hub, which it looks like that's where you're going to be able to spend your Ubisoft points. There's going to be like content like skins and packs and stuff like that are going to drop in. So that's like a Ubisoft store, I think. And there's the vault, which is narrative content, which seems like it's probably going to be the least of the use of the lot. But that's where all of like your collected Animus memories and basically it's a bunch of documents that probably barely anyone's going to read through. But if you're interested in the Assassin's Creed history, that's going to be the vault where all that narrative content is kept. So if you're wondering what the hell's going on in the Assassin's Creed world right now, it's listed in the narrative vault. So this Animus Hub, it's supported for Shadows for now, but it does look like it's going to add a period 2 of games, which is going to be, as shown in the trailer, Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla, Mirage at a later date. And then you've got to imagine the goal is to get everything on there. Because let's face it, some of the older Assassin's Creed games, me and Richie said last week, Black Flag remake is pretty much all but confirmed. There's been leaks and stuff all over the place. We've had the Ezio collection made in the past, and the only ones that are missing is Assassin's Creed 1. Is the only one. Back to that problem. Why do they always leave out the original one that's kickstarted at all? But I'm not angry at this in a weird way. I think Ubisoft need a win, and Assassin's Creed is by far their biggest franchise, hands down.
Yeah.
And if this is the place where you can go and just jump into any Assassin's Creed game you want in one place, I'm okay with it because I own them all anyway. So it's basically I just have one place to go for them. What's your take on this Animus Hub?
I'm kind of on the opposite side for you, unfortunately. To me, it seems like a really nice launcher.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a launcher.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the only kind of that's all the qualification I need. Like, I just want to be able to play a game and just select the game and go into it. I don't want to have to like go into launcher, go into game, and be sold some DLC along the way. Like, nah.
It does say, and here as well, as to be fair, it's like if you own the games on disc, they'll need to be installed on your platform. So I wonder, like, what's that going to look like for me going, let's play Origins, and it just cuts out of the Animus Hub and goes, insert disc, and I'm like, you've kind of broken the illusion already now. If you have them all digitally, that could be a nice transition. Like, or is it going to take it to the storefront? Because that, again, would break the illusion. Like, it just takes you straight to the PlayStation Store. It's like, guess I don't have Mirage or whatever it is.
Yeah, I hope I'm wrong and it's something a bit more creative and, like, kind of, content-led.
If they
immerse you, but
if they bit the bullet and just went all previous entries are just included in this Animus Hub, like I think that would be a big win for someone. Like if you're maybe thinking, like if you're on the fence with buying Shadows, and you just buy Shadows and like Animus Hub actually comes stacked with Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. That's like 1,000 hours worth of gameplay.
Oh yeah.
And Ubisoft love to discount their games. I think our Discord group were talking about Mirage is like $9.99 for the deluxe edition right now, and it's like, why buy Ubisoft games day one? If you're just patient, you can get them for pennies.
Literally no point.
Pennies. I'm looking forward to Shadows. There was loads of gameplay that dropped this week where people were saying like, actually, Shadows is looking really, really good. It's the most iterative they've been with Assassin's Creed in the last 10 years. Apparently the parkour is closer to Unity, with like the really free-flowing movement. The combat's got almost like Ghost of Tsushima style with stances and approaches to enemy types. So that could be different. And yeah, again, the story is usually wishy-washy, but we'll see where they go with that. Animus Hub, it's here. let us know in the comments below what your thoughts are on the long-awaited Assassin's Creed Infinity. Obviously, we do have Assassin's Creed Hex on the horizon, which is the horror one.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll probably drop into the hub as well at some point. But I think for me, I like it more so because I've got them all. I've got the platinum in pretty much all of these games.
Yeah.
I think just having them in one place, like back to my Resident Evil point, like I just want the whole collection in one tidy place. Yeah, like a virtual trophy room. But again, in practice, what that looks like, we'll have to wait until Shadows drops to find out. But it certainly seems like an odd time to just randomly release it. Like, I feel like this.
I think they're just trying stuff now, aren't they?
Like,
they
yes,
need
see
something.
what sticks. Well, moving on to our next story then. One thing that certainly didn't stick was Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. And I'm glad I've got you on, Rob, this week, because you were fighting alongside me where I think last year and beyond, you and me were just saying, what are they doing over at WB? Like, aside from Hogwarts Legacy, their head is so far up that CEO guy's ass that like they don't know what a game is from what a movie is at the moment.
Yeah.
And I mean, the DC movie, like, have you got any hope for James Gunn's Superman and whatnot?
Not from what I've seen. Like the dog and like the baggy trunks. I don't know.
Is it Creature Commandos? Is the first project that came out? The anime. It's like a cartoon thing, and
yeah, the only thing I like about DC now is the Peacemaker series.
Yeah, I really did enjoy Peacemaker, and like that's canon, but it's not canon. Like this is where it's so like just it needs to be disbanded for like a good decade before you touch it. But I enjoyed Robert Pattinson's Batman.
Yeah,
well.
I loved it. I love
so
Penguin as well. Penguin is great.
Yeah, so like on their own, it's so weird how like they clash and don't clash, and it's like, I mean, Marvel has struggled with the same thing. But to talk about the games is we've got it in the story doc this week because Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment president David Haddad is stepping down after 12 years in the role, with his departure following a rocky period for Warner Brothers Games division that's been marked by a number of high-profile flops. As reported this week by Variety, Haddad will stay on with the company for the next 3 months while Warner seeks its replacement. David has thoughtfully and purposely chosen a time when our release schedule is lighter, Warner Brothers said in a recent statement, which will help minimise disruption to our ongoing projects and strategic plans. I'm just going to say it now, the CEO has virtually no impact on roadmap plans or anything like that. He's got a full team of people who do this day-to-day below him. He just rocks up and asks questions.
Thoughtfully left is such a generous way of saying we pushed him when it was the least impactful for us.
He shit the bed. His leadership shit the bed, and that's why. Of course, this comes on the disastrous release of Rocksteady's Suicide Squad, which was so much of a flop that it actually resulted in a $200 million loss for Warner Brothers. That's also on the back of the free-to-play platform Multiverses, also failing to find an audience, despite almost a year of downtime before retooling and relaunching. That resulted in a further $100 million hit for the publisher. So they're $300 million deep after just 2 games. That's, of course, not to say the Gotham Knights, which was basically just another shit version of Suicide Squad from everything I saw of it.
Yeah.
And again, that's coming from someone who absolutely adored the Arkham trilogy series. If you just give me 2 more Arkham games out of these 2 studios who made the wonderful Arkham trilogy and the much forgotten Arkham Origins,
honestly, the amount of Arkham Origins is forgotten is criminal in my mind.
It is. It really is. It deserves a reboot. It deserves to be in some kind of Arkham Animus, Rob, where you have all the games in one place, and it's in the Batcave, and all the games are just there, and you go down a different tunnel, and the game's at the end of each tunnel, and Alfred goes and gets you the skins for you and goes back. But realistically, I think I said to Richie last week, is like Rocksteady should just get on a Batman Beyond game now. Just give us because Kevin Conroy, rest in peace, he's gone. So you need a new voice actor anywhere. Give us an old Bruce. Give us a young Batman Beyond game in the same Arkham world. Make the map big as fuck. Just put a red tint on everything. Just make it cool. That's what you need to do. The other team, WME Montreal, I worry they could probably be closed down because that's just like between Arkham Origins and then a 9-year gap till Gotham Knights. I just... Like, what do you do?
I don't know what route they have to survival. To be honest, I just don't see it.
And then, of course, you've got thankfully for WB, you had Hogwarts Legacy, which was a huge success, biggest selling game, top Call of Duty for 2023. Obviously, they're going to do a sequel for that. Remember Quidditch Champions? That also failed to replicate any kind of Harry Potter success. So it clearly wasn't just the brand; it was the game as well. Did really well. And there's a random Wonder Woman game out there that we've not seen from Monolith, who should have been making a 3rd entry in the Shadow of War Middle-earth series. But no, they got moved over to make a Wonder Woman game because
when they announced that Wonder Woman was popular, and then that's died.
And then Gal Gadot and whoever it was ruined that franchise with that second ferocious movie. You do wonder. So obviously, Hogwarts Legacy sequels are given. They've got to double down and go back to a single-player Arkham game, Rocksteady, but that's like 5 years away now. What do you do in the meantime to make money? But they have IP, Warner Brothers. Like, we've got that Game of Thrones game that me and Richie looked quite interested in at the Game Awards, but then it ended up after the fact, turned out it was a mobile game. It just looked good enough to be a normal one. Yeah, what are you going to do? Wasted talent. Like, just like PlayStation, it's whoever made these decisions to go live service like 8-9 years ago, they deserve to go. Jim Ryan should have left. This guy, David Haddad, they clearly just saw the dollar signs because other companies were making money off live service, took all of their good quality single-player studios and put them on a live service game. And look how much it's bit them all in the ass.
Like, as soon as you start to make that turn, it's not a fast turn.
No.
And like, as soon as you start reacting to like trends, like they're basically over by the time you go to market.
Yeah, it's
like games take a long time to make.
Yeah, it's like steering a massive cruise liner, isn't it? You can't just pivot. You need to know, and then there's a fucking iceberg coming at you. Like, what do? You just plow straight through it. So yeah, he's gone, which hopefully brings in fresh leadership, and I mean, the knee-jerk reaction is to just go back to what you know, right? Which thankfully is quality single-player games. And it just baffles me, Matt. They have IP like Game of Thrones and The Lord of the Rings. Like the movie, they have the movie Lord of the Rings. Well, the decently well-loved Peter Jackson movie rights. So they could even make something that actually looks like them. It doesn't have to be Rings of Power. It can be something different.
I actually had like a dream about a Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson style game. And like, I don't know how, but like I'd really spec this out in my dream world.
Do tell.
And it was like, basically like the game starts off and like you're from Rohan, and like the tutorial is you like riding to Minas Tirith, for like the Return of the King crescendo.
All right,
involved in. Like you have like a really really beautiful cinematic, use the original kind of score and the original sounds from like that, like the Ride of the Rohirrim.
Yeah.
Even in my dream, like the guy who was teaching you how to like do things was like the really aggressive, fast rider at the end.
That guy.
It's like he basically tells you what to do, and then goes charge, and goes, and then goes into that. But then like obviously you do that. There's a soft intro to the game, and then you either do like the march to Mordor and have like a campaign, like a really tight knit story campaign within that, or you do it after the destruction of the ring, and it's like kind of quelling all like the kind of like the Easterlings and stuff like that, and like that's in the world. It's really familiar to people who love the game, like and love the universe, and unless you really fuck that up, it would do well.
Yeah.
So like the need to like kind of commit to something like that, I think.
Yeah, I think you can see the appetite for the Lord of the Rings is there. Like as much as Rings of Power was like wishy-washy to a lot of people. I enjoyed season 2. Obviously, the movie came out, but it's like that love for the Peter Jackson trilogy. If you have that aesthetic, and like I said, the similar musical tones and stuff, like people will lap it up. Like I know they're doing a Hunt for Gollum movie in that universe, and Andy Serkis is in it and directing, and they're rumored to get Ian McKellen back. But it's almost like 20 years have passed though, guys, since then. Like, what are we doing different? And I keep saying with Richie's, like, give me a War in the North. Like, we had the game War in the North, but give me the War in the North movie. Let me fight the witch. Like, let me watch like the North fight the Witch King. Like, show me the Dunedain Rangers of the North fighting with the elves of Rivendell and stuff against the Witch King, and like put him in the ground, and that's when like it ends. Like, because you can kill him, but he doesn't have to be dead because he's going to show up in the movies. But he's undead, so you can kill him. So you actually can end the movie with the big bad being killed. But yeah, and that in between just Game of Thrones, like what wasted gaming IP Game of Thrones was. How have we only got a Telltale game and some mobile games out of what is the massive fantasy game storyline that is Game of Thrones? It's baffling.
The worst thing is, I feel like there's so little buzz around Game of Thrones now.
Yeah,
like I don't think it would have the same success it would have had.
No,
when Iron was hot.
Imagine a Battle for Middle Earth that was Westeros, though.
Yeah,
like the factions and the families and the different map location, like the citadels, castles you'd fight at to claim, and like you imagine just the skirmish mode, but you basically took like the North, and the banners all changed over from Stark to Lannister, and
like Galactic Conquest,
vice versa. Yeah, and you had your dragon going, and then there was always the threat of the North of the Wall. It was like, man, Maybe one day. But until then, we look back to history, Rob, because we also got some new Nintendo Switch Online games for January. Don't have a clue which any of these are, but we got Sute Hakun, Fatal Fury 2, and Super Ninja Boy. Fatal Fury 2 is a SNES part of the SNK Arcade Classic fighting game. Will you choose to fight as Terry or his younger brother Andy, or perhaps a big wrestler known as Big Bear? We also have, what else did I say on there? Fatal Fury? Fist of Fury?
Fatal Fury 2.
And Super Ninja Boy. Yeah, they're just old school games. But actually, while we've got you on, Rob, I guess you missed the episode where the Switch 2 finally got revealed.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think you're similar to me, where our love for Nintendo is like definitely lodged in the older school, but the Switch kind of doesn't do much for us in 2025.
No, not at all. It's like I think it's more like a lifestyle console where it's like if I was traveling more, then it becomes a lot more kind of makes a lot more sense. But like that's not happening as often now, and like I think it'll just gather a lot of dust for me.
Yeah, I haven't used my Switch. I think we looked at like our yearly recaps at the end of 2024. I think I'd played my Switch for like 10 hours tops in a year, and it's and I know a lot of people have been the same because they haven't had like a Pokemon game out, they haven't had a Mario 3D out. Obviously, if I want to play Mario Kart, the other one's still there, and it's kind of like I just haven't really had a reason. I like the look of everything Switch 2. It's just like what they need to do something. I think if it comes out and it's the power of the PS4 Pro, which is the rumor, and it starts to get games that are of a higher modern sensibility quality, they could get me in because of the portability factor. But myself, Richie, and Tom was saying last week when we were out drinking that we all have portals now. Tom's ordered a Midnight Black portal, so it's like I can use my PS5 on the go because I have the portal. So the Switch is almost becoming more and more redundant for me. But you know what? They'll announce a new Pokemon game, and I'll have that itch for Pokemon. I'm like, fuck it, I'm back in. But it is what it is. So some more games come to Switch Online. Don't have a clue what any three of them are. Let me know in the comments below if I've just like shat all over one of your beloved childhood games, but they are what they are. Speaking of, not beloved franchises, an update came from Unknown 9 developers. And the reason I want to bring this up, Rob, don't have to spend too long on it, but Unknown 9 Awakening came out last year, apparently, and the development studio Reflector have said that they will not be continuing with the franchise after the seemingly poor reception of the original title came out last year. It was the one with the actress from The Witcher.
Yennefer?
Yeah, and they showed off like essentially a game that looked like Assassin's Creed, but with some kind of like ethereal powers. They were going to do two projects at Reflector Studios. One was going to be a follow-up to Unknown 9. It was in the conceptual phase. And then another game, but apparently they've terminated the lifestyle. They will not be continuing the franchise as initially planned because they were going to do a transmedia thing. If you recall, they had novels, podcasts, a web series, a bunch of stuff planned for this Unknown 9 game. And I think someone did point out to us that it actually does come from like an ongoing series, but seemingly it didn't make the transition over to games that well. And quite frankly, I forgot this even came out last year.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad like saying this.
If you told me it was out in May, I'd be like, all right, I remember which one you're talking about. If you told me it came out last year, I'd be like, oh shit, that's either bad marketing on their part or it's just that forgettable. Again, Unknown 9, what's with the name? Like,
and I guess they tried something, right? Like that's
it doesn't look bad either. That's the thing. I think it just gets caught up in the swell of games that came out the back end of last year. So Unknown 9 will stay unknown even longer, Rob, as we move on to our final few stories of the week. Marvel Snap is a game that I thoroughly enjoyed playing last year, but as with most mobile games, I just dropped it in the end. I was like, I can't do this. I think me and Richie were playing Pokemon trading card game, had a great time with it. I think Richie still is collecting them on there, but he's a bigger Pokemon fan than me, and I've just dropped off it, as I do with most of them. But Marvel Snap, I don't know if you saw, was switched offline last year. It got caught up in all of that US TikTok ban stuff.
I was really confused when I read the headline for this.
Yeah, it's obviously something
powered by TikTok or something. Or?
No, I think it probably just uses similar servers, maybe that TikTok does. But in a lengthy social media post, it was like obviously switched offline through no fault of their own, and then it was brought back online when President Trump signed his special order that brought him back online. We won't go into the politics of all that right now, but in a lengthy statement, the studio basically wanted to thank their players in an apology for unexpected downtime. The studio, which is called Second Dinner, which is really confusing when they read the article, because every time it says Second Dinner, my brain thinks of something that's got nothing to do with game development. They said, many of you missed out on the time-based content, rewards, and missions during the outage, acknowledging the disruption was more than an unfortunate blip. And now the game is back online, they're ready to make up to players stateside. For US-based players, they give essentially a shit ton of stuff. I'm not going to go through the list because it's like 100 things of credits and collector's tokens and points and cards, and I'm sure if you get it all in one go, it's fantastic. Even for non-US based players who didn't experience the drop-off, they're getting a global gratitude package, which also gives them a shit ton of stuff as well. But obviously, the stuff was there because of the blackouts that they had. It's going to be available in the US for 30 days. So if you are still playing Marvel Snap, like, just credit to the devs for going like, yeah, look, we had a bit of downtime. I guess they're giving stuff away for free because it doesn't cost them anything to give free packs out, but they obviously must lose stuff monetarily where people would have otherwise maybe bought packs. So it is a bit of a hit financially in some regards, but I think the worry for them is if your game goes offline unexpectedly for a period of time, everyone logs out and never comes back. And I think this is the way you make sure people go, remember, you were playing us daily. Like,
especially with these types of games which rely on that kind of almost like Pavlovian.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if you are just systematically logging in every day and clicking your packs and getting your XP and grinding, essentially, you go 2 or 3 days without that, and all of a sudden you're out of the routine. And it's like, oh, well,
and
I never really
needed it. You just find another
it.
one to tap and click, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is a really tactical but generous way of going like, look, come back, we'll give you shit tons of stuff, and hopefully people fall back into that loop again.
Yeah, like, I think it's just a good way to manage the community and just get some goodwill on the side as well. Yeah. And
Marvel Snap is a great game. It's one of the best mobile games I've played in a couple of years. It was one of them I thought, a card game, can I really get into it? And then the visuals and the way it plays, it is a fun online card collection game, and actually more fun than the Pokemon one in a lot of ways. But kudos to them. Quick couple to wrap out the show, Rob. We've got Team 17, parent company, are now going to be known as the Everplay Group. Team 17 you might know from a lot of smaller titles. They had like Overcooked. They obviously overlooked the Worms franchise, Worms Armageddon, Worms at War, all that kind of stuff. And the reason they're renaming is because the parent company, they've actually snapped up a couple of indie developers over the years, and they actually have a Team 17 team working on making games, but then the parent company was called Team 17 Group. But then now they actually have a couple of other studios that aren't called Team 17. It seemed they needed a better name that umbrellaed over everything. So they've rebranded themselves as the Everplay Group. Don't mind the name. It's quite harmless, I think. Yeah. The logo is just like an angular infinity logo, essentially. And they have a bunch of things under there. One of them, the Hungry Caterpillar, Rob. Remember the Hungry Caterpillar? From the children. I didn't know there was a game franchise. I didn't either, but apparently it's part of their marketing, so maybe they just have the IP rights. Team 17 is now Everplay, although Team 17 still make games. Ukulele, Overcooked, Moving Out, Blasphemous, some of the ones that you might know. So yeah, rebrand, they quoted says, creates an ideal backdrop to foster great cross-collaboration internally, but also reflects our aspirations to expand our reach across complementary sectors within the broader indie market. So, yeah, cool for them. I like Team 17. They've been around since the 1990s. And I think you and me both probably got shed tons of childhood memories just playing Worms, quite frankly. God, yeah. So they'll always have a soft spot in my heart for that. I know myself and Richie and stuff love Overcooked as well. So just, nice indie fun. They don't really overstretch themselves. And all the games they seem to find and curate just really fun, small price games that you can waste hours of couch play together. So, yeah. Team 17, rebranded. And then the final two stories, Resident Evil 2 Remake on iOS has been another flop. We know Resident Evil 7 was a flop on iOS last year. Well, guess what? Resident Evil 2 Remake has just had a similar fate. Data mobile tracking from the Apple Magic store says that the game only managed to pass 100k of in-app purchase earnings. The remake was obviously a mobile port that came out last December, so it's only been out a couple of weeks. The game was heavily discounted during the first few weeks, released down to $10, £10, whichever side of the Atlantic you're on. And according to estimates, Capcom made 95k during the discount period, meaning roughly only 9,500 users actually purchased the game at full price to get behind the paywall. Since January, the game has boosted back up to full retail price, so in the UK it's £31.99. To download on iOS.
I just don't know what they expected, like, going down this route. I mean, like, nothing about it kind of engenders success. It's like, do you want to play a really like immersive horror game hunched over on your couch
or on your iPad with your fingers on the screen?
It's like, no, I don't want to do that. Do you want the really clunky controls, which will get you killed very easily?
Yeah.
No. Do you want to pay this much for it.
Yeah.
No, like
This strikes me as Apple had their initiative to showcase that their new range of tech hardware could play AAA games. So they whipped out the checkbook, went to whoever developers would, and Capcom went, "We'll take it. We'll do it."
Yeah,
Remember,
we want that Apple money.
Yeah, right, they did it with Stadia, remember? Google went, "Do you want to make games?" And we got Village and we got Biohazard. And we got... Did we get one of... I can't remember if we got... I think we were supposed to get 2 and 3 remake, and then obviously we know what happened there. So clearly Capcom were just like quite happy to rent themselves out to whoever. And you know what? If they got the bag of cash, that's on Apple for foolishly wanting to put, as you said, an immersive horror game on a flat screen surface in your palm of your hand. Like, and not only that, the price. Like, the game's old. Like, Resident Evil 2 and Village aren't new titles, so to charge $31.99 for a game
I bought the
5-year-old at this point.
Like, I bought the mobile version of the GTA Vice City because that was like £4. You know,
and it's an older game, so it's got simpler movement and stuff as well.
Yeah, but it's just such a bad.
Yeah, so I think it's safe to say this is the last we'll probably see of them. I think the Resident Evil 7 that came out last year in July, that was bought by under 2,000 people, if I remember that story. So yeah, let's just move on. Apple, if you want to take gaming seriously, maybe don't charge $3,500 for your VR headset and stop charging 31 quid for games that are 5-odd-year-old. But the last story of the week, Rob, is Sonic the Hedgehog 4 has gotten a movie release date confirmed by Paramount. So they're not stopping at 3. We're going to get to a point where we've got more Sonic movies than Sonic games. So yeah, confirmed to be coming out on March 19th, 2027. It was announced on Tuesday. No word on who it is, but it basically earmarks the fact that the Sonic movie franchise has now grossed over $1 billion. And I don't know if you've seen, but over the Christmas period, it just knocked it out of the park. And it had more
like 600 million or something.
Yeah, but it had more takings than like the Mufasa movie. It had like 4 times more money than the Mufasa movie. And like Gladiator 2 and stuff that did well, but it went toe-to-toe to them. And was Sonic just destined to be a movie franchise more than a game franchise?
It's such a bizarre thing because like they struggled for decades to get like a decent game like out the door, and like just this movie opportunity was just sat there and like no one really paid attention to it, right?
Yeah, and it's like I've seen the first 2. I didn't get a chance to go to the cinema over Christmas to see the 3rd entry. I'll definitely watch it when it comes to streaming platforms. But it's just like I guess it's kids, right? It's got to be kids.
Yeah, must be.
And obviously their parents who grew up with Sonic are more than happy to take them to see it. So it's just like a perfect storm, almost.
I think maybe what it is, it's like, because obviously it's a big trend now that like people just aren't going to the cinema as much, are they?
True.
Like, there's just not happening. But a movie like Sonic, whereas you'd normally get like, I don't know, say for the sake of argument, a cinema ticket's like £10, which you know is probably more now, but whatever. Like a normal couple going to see like an action movie or a drama movie, that's like £20, you know. But had taken a family to see Sonic, you know, 2 kids, 2 adults, like maybe going with like another mom or something, like it quickly adds up to like more success, I think. But as I said, like the good movies, I've seen the first one, and based on like kind of the hype it gets, like if they can keep going and making quality ones, why not?
Do you feel like, in a way, the way they're stylized, like 1 and 2 especially, and now 3, and then no doubt 1 to 4, they've got a very Fast and the Furious vibe about them. Like, not in the way there's cars and stuff, but it's like it's just daft action. It doesn't take itself seriously. It's got likable characters. It's got explosions. It's got fights, and it's very lighthearted. And like I think it ticks all those boxes where people just go, it's a popcorn flick. It's ultimately just a popcorn action flick. It doesn't need to be anything more serious than that. And thankfully, because of the legacy of Sonic, they're able to just bring more characters and more people into it. And then they go and hire Keanu Reeves, and Jim Carrey smashes it as Robotnik. Like, you couldn't think of any better casting as well. And it lives on. So Sonic 4 coming out 2027. It's ironically it's going toe to toe with Kong and Godzilla because they've already dated their movie for that month as well. So it's
I don't think there's much
Sonic.
competition.
No, it's Sonic versus probably the 10th movie in that Monsters universe now. That I don't know what's happening with that one, but who knows? Maybe we'll get a Sonic movie video game tie-in at some point because Frontiers was received quite well last year, so Who knows? But Rob, that brings it to an end for this week's episode of the Gamer Guild podcast. And we like to end every episode by looking back at this day in video game history as we wind down this week's show. We're recording this on Saturday, the 25th of January. So looking back into yesteryear, anything from the list that jumps out to you, Rob?
Dead Space 2. I didn't realise like that landed kind of in January. But
yeah, I mean, me and Richie have been saying for the last couple of weeks that January is just an absolute barren waste of games, like nothing comes out, and maybe we're starting to get into that. But yeah, Dead Space 2, 14 years ago in 2011 it launched. So again, this is the part of the show where we like to make ourselves feel old by going, shit.
What about the Playboy colon the mansion 20 years ago?
Playboy colon, yeah, I remember that one. Ironically, back to our Apple iOS story, Resident Evil 2, 6 years ago today. So that iOS game they're charging $31.99 for, 6-year-old game.
It always confuses me on the listings that we look at here, where it's like, oh, Resident Evil 2 came out. And then I look at 6 years ago, I'm like, oh, okay, remake.
Yeah, not the original. Yeah, absolutely. Celeste came out 7 years ago. Celeste, great little puzzle platforming game. Hi-Fi Rush, celebrating its 2-year anniversary as well. Shout out to Hi-Fi Rush. Obviously, we don't know what's happening with that franchise yet. It got scrapped, then sold, then bought, then might get a reboot, might not get a reboot. Who knows?
Potentially like one of the biggest tragedies of the past couple of years of gaming.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking ahead a day or two, Sonic 3 and Knuckles came out 14 years ago. I'll take that. That's relevant to the last story of the show.
Mass Effect 2.
And then just skipping a day ahead, see if we've got anything extra. Yeah.
Dying Light was 10 years ago.
10 years. Damn, Dying Light. That's a good one. And then round it out, 2 years ago, the Dead Space remake. That's already 2 years old. But yeah, coming out in January. Yeah, that was a hell of a start to the year as well. I think that was a baller year. I think it started with Dead Space and then it went on to be crazy. Yeah, it's good couple of years.
Yeah, maybe this like January Dead Zone is just like a figment. Do you know, like the what's that Mandela effect where like you think something happened in the past,
nothing comes out. Yeah, it actually did. But yeah, I think again games have just spread out across the year. Like when we were younger, it very much was like the Christmas season in summer, and I felt like you pretty much had nothing to play at the beginning of the year.
But is that maybe just because our parents bought us stuff for Christmas and then bought us a game for summer to keep us busy and not bothering them?
Quite possibly. But I tell you what they don't have to buy, Rob, this podcast, because it's free and it goes live every Monday, 8 a.m, where we get together and round up all the video game news. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell so you're kept in the loop with all the great content we do here every single week. And of course, look out for our live stream later on this week. We'll probably be jumping back into The Last of Us. It might be Richie doing something on his own because I'm maybe busy with work. We'll find out. But you have to like, subscribe, and follow us so you're kept in the loop with all that. Shout out, of course, to all of our wonderful guild heroes, the fantastic folks who support us that extra little bit further. You can do so as well by clicking join below. From as little as 99p, you get early access to this very show and other shows that we have in the pipeline as well. Thank you very much, Rob, for jumping in once again, covering for Richie. We always appreciate you showing up as well. And yeah, that's been it for the Gamer Guild Podcast, episode number 76. My name's been Chris.
My name has been Rob.
We've been GamerGuildTV. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. And remember, play whatever makes you the happiest. See you next time. Goodbye.